A lot of people like myself have been wondering why the game industry continues to push such over the top failures in regards to high profile flops lately. Some can be described as failed visions, broken promises, or just silly business with a blank check. I think it's beginning to show a bigger issue. When are these companies going to start learning from their mistakes or even be punished for them? You think having an open book test will make it pretty hard to fail since the last person with the wrong answer literally exploded into pieces, but I guess not. Also, they've watched 8 other people in a row pick the same answer and explode, but surely this time it'll be different for them, right? Games like Babylon's Fall, Concord, Multiverses, Saints Row, Redfall, Suicide Squad, all these games released with some of the same issues that I feel have started to fuel a new community in the gaming sphere. The hateaholics, the hate jerk circle, we'll figure out a name later. Basically, all of these consecutive failures over the years have led to a group, who aren't gamers by the way, having this absolute hard on for games crashing and burning shortly after their release or even before. The reason I say they aren't gamers is, well, they were never going to buy the game, they never read anything about the game pre release. If the game had a demo or an early playtest, they didn't play it or participate, and they only spent all their time looking at Steam player counts and refreshing Asmongold's YouTube page to repeat whatever Roach based opinion he has. Dare I say, they were never the target audience to begin with. So that brings me back to the title. Why is the QA role so important that it could cause such a dramatic naming scheme? Well, as a former QA, a lot of the consistent issues I've seen across the gaming landscape all come back to the same point. That point being perspective. What kind of perspective? Yes, all of it actually. A good QA team provides a ton of information to the developers, project leads, directors, you name it. Now, while that might not seem so deep on the surface, your QA team telling you something in the game sucks is very different from an end user telling you the game sucks after a global release that we kind of can't take back. QA gets involved in earlier aspects of the game design process, more criticism can be given to the developers and creative leads to address fixes, but also a lot of this only kind of matters if the game retains the same creative lead and or leads for its entire life cycle, which a lot of these games don't, but that's another in-depth problem to look into. Now, do all these thoughts get addressed or even implemented? Absolutely not. But it's more so a fact that these conversations can be had before Twitter gets a hold of the game and starts a negative circle jerk about a product that hasn't even been released yet. Which brings me to my next point. QAs are basically your in-house paid professional haters. Points that random users will bring up can be discussed months or even years in advance before release, so they can be worked on and polished or even maybe entirely removed before the game comes out, instead of a random user making a tweet that causes a negative PR avalanche, RIP High Guard. If you know what tweet I'm referring to, I owe you a cookie. Okay, so we understand how QA teams can help, so why do proper QA teams go away? Well, to be fair, most competent releases still have decent QA teams, closed beta, alpha testing, feedback reviews involving the creative team, and even opening up to the public, basically doing everything they can to put out a stable release. So if all of this can help so much, why don't companies just invest more into it? Well, it's your fault. Yes, you. Companies saw that the release now, fix later method that saw success from much bigger franchises could be implemented into their own games, and it's had very mixed results to say the least. And I don't mean like having a Long Island on a Friday at 6 p.m. type results. I'm talking you ordering Adios on a Sunday with the shift coming up at 8 a.m. sharp. It's currently 4 a.m. And that type of time pressure is exactly how companies have been treating any new IPs that get released. Live service games are a high demand money pit that require dedicated teams actively working around the clock to basically run the spaceship at max efficiency for as long as possible. And that level of required commitment is exactly why companies started to trim corners and look for any way that they could to minimize expenses while getting the biggest profits. Take a game like Skate, for example, which should be as simple as me ride skateboard, me wear cool clothes, me do Jesus pose, repeat. And somehow they found a way to mess that up too. So what if we took everything that people liked about the original games and just took it out and put it behind a microtransaction? And then they started circle jerking into another money pit. One thing that companies haven't seemed to realize is that basically since the inception of online games is that gamers are very much creatures of habit. Every time you launch a new product, you're basically trying to lure out a mouse into a trap that clearly says, we would like to tap that. Please give us money while we continue to tap that. The thing being tapped being the customer's wallet and time. And the funny thing is, some companies have already figured out the tap that method, if you will. Free updates, clear communication from the dev team, getting ready. High price microtransactions. You almost had my pants off. I almost fell for it. And honestly, for some people, that's not even necessarily a deal breaker. It's just that they would rather stay with the villain that they know rather than bring in someone new. Well, he spits in my food every Wednesday, but at least I know it's coming. Look at a game like Overwatch, for example, which I definitely don't have thousands of hours in, but there's comfort in familiarity, and gamers are a prime example of that. The simplest way I can break it down is that there are too many non-gamers making gamer-related decisions. This is leading to layoffs of extremely talented individuals because the failures don't translate up the chain, they go down. The game didn't make $1 billion on the first day. Just blow up the studio. Also, spit in their food so they can get used to it. Let's do this again next week with $5 million of investment money. All right, break.